Live? Yep. All right. Hey, welcome everybody to Behind Enemy Lines with Terry Newsom and Paul Drabick. Terry's off doing Terry things and helping fight for transparency. And we've got some real interesting information for you after our awesome interview with a Sheriff Richard Mack, who started the Constitutional Sheriff and Peace Officers Association. So before we get started with that interview, Sheriff Mack is going to be such an interesting interview because some of you who've been watching us behind enemy lines know that we've been back and forth fighting the establishment of Republicans in our town, in our county, in Illinois, and we've had a little run-in with the sheriff in this county. So just for a brief overview, to go back on the history here, Terry and I met fighting against the schools when they were masking kids and sending them home during COVID. And then we found out there was pornography in the schools, so we were fighting back against that. I was going the political route. Terry was going the media route. He gets put on a fly list during all this because he's getting a no-fly list because he's getting all this media attention for calling attention to the pornography in the schools, presumably because he was at January 6th, right? We don't know for sure, but he attended January 6th with a sheriff, coincidentally. Never went into the Capitol. Luckily, Matt Gaetz and Troy Niels and some congressmen found out about Terry's situation, wrote a letter to Merrick Garland and Christopher Wray, got him off the fly list. Terry and I started to work together. We're challenging the Republicans for donating to Democrats, including Soros-funded state attorney Kim Foxx. We spoke at meetings, got standing ovations. The leadership didn't like that. The sheriff and the leadership put together a packet doxing everyone in Terry's family, from his parents to his kids, and also tried to associate him with pedophiles in his neighborhood. I don't know if everybody remembers that. And if, Jason, you want to bring up the picture of the state police visiting Terry's house. So shortly thereafter, when we had confronted them about all this on our podcast, the state police showed up to Terry's house questioning him about political speech on a podcast. In America, we've got law enforcement visiting a civilian, as you see the picture right there from his Ring doorbell with the badge. Those were the badges on both of them. Those are state police visiting a citizen because of speech on his podcast, political speech on his podcast. Then, of course, the sheriff threatened me in a public meeting saying I had a police report filed on me for the same reason. That sheriff then becomes the vice chair of the political party, and subsequently Terry and I get blackballed, and we start fighting against them. Jason, if you want to pull up the Fox article about the guns. Now, this sheriff, we're going to show an article here. Sheriff Mendrick of DuPage County, he had originally, Illinois had made a law banning assault weapons, right? But not only that, for anybody who owned an assault weapon, they wanted you to volunteer your information to put you on a list. So you could keep your weapon, but you had to be on a list. And we all know being on a government list is it always goes well for the citizens, right? So Sheriff Mendrick, he was all tough talk and said that he would not enforce the unconstitutional law if implemented. And I'll read some of what he said. He said, I, among many others, believe that HB 5471 is a clear violation of the Second Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, Mendrick said. Therefore, as the custodian of the jail and chief law enforcement officer an official for DuPage County, that neither myself nor my office will be checking to ensure that lawful gun owners register their weapons with the state, nor will we be arresting or housing law-abiding individuals that have been arrested solely with non-compliance of this act. However, after Mendrick attended a meeting with DuPage County Board Chair Deborah Conroy and DuPage County State's Attorney Robert Berlin, the sheriff reversed course and said he would enforce the law. So we can't even trust our sheriff to stand by what he says about the Constitution. the premier legal document of this country. Quote, enforcement of this law does not demand that deputies go door to door seeking to remove weapons from the license to own them. With this understanding, Sheriff Medrick is committed to enforcing all state and local laws. Berlin, Conroy, and Medrick said in a joint statement posted to Facebook on Tuesday. Okay. So, and if you pull up the ABC article, we'll just show that a federal judge strikes down Illinois assault weapons ban. State files appeal. So the sheriff says that he's not going to enforce it because it's against the Constitution. He's right. Then he kowtows, right, to the political pressure. And now we see that a federal judge strikes it down because it is unconstitutional. Now, I just want to show one more article, and then we're going to bring in our guest. The WGN article, Jason. So here, here we go. DuPage County Sheriff to suspend evictions during portion of the holiday season. Now, that might sound like, it's a compassionate enforcement there because it's the holiday season. But that's actually a violation of our Fourth Amendment right. So, we can get into that with the sheriff, but this is the kind of sheriff we have in DuPage County. He's a supposed Republican, but what we're going to talk about with our guests coming on is that sheriffs have a right and a duty to enforce constitutional law. And we have a sheriff in DuPage County who's posing as a Republican who refuses to do so, and I think that's unacceptable. So with that, let's bring in our esteemed guest, Sheriff Richard Mack. Sheriff, can you hear me?
I sure can. Thank you, Paul. It's a pleasure to be with you.
Well, hey, it's a pleasure to have you on. I've followed some of the constitutional sheriff movement, and I think it's extremely interesting, and I'm really excited to hear you educate us more on it. With that being said, Sheriff Mack, could you give us a little bit about your background, kind of an elevator pitch about your background? I could have done it myself, but I think it's better, to hear it from the source.
Well, sure. I spent 20 years in law enforcement, and I did everything in law enforcement imaginable. Then after 11 and a half, 12 years with the Provo Police Department, I moved home to Arizona and ran for sheriff in my hometown. And the reason I did is primarily I wanted to run my own office according to the Constitution. I was tired of seeing government that never followed the Constitution, never studied the Constitution, never worried about the Constitution or our oath of office. And I discovered that the most important thing about our job was the oath of allegiance that we swore to the Constitution. And so I said, well, I can't make everybody else follow the Constitution, but if I'm the boss and I'm the sheriff in my own department, in my own office, I can. And so I was elected miraculously in 1988. I was reelected in 1992. And as fate would have it, I became the first sheriff in American history to sue the federal government, the Clinton administration, take it all the way to the United States Supreme Court, and win a landmark decision against the Clinton administration. It was a miraculous case. It's available at our website in this little booklet, and I highly recommend. In fact, every American should have this book in their home, in their car, and on their person. It's very small. It's very thin. It's only 16 pages, and it fits in your coat pocket, your shirt pocket, or your purse. And you should keep these around so you can pass them around to your sheriff. I guarantee you, DuPage County Sheriff needs to read this.
I agree with
my
you.
biggest motivation to file the lawsuit was because the federal government threatened to arrest us if we failed to enforce their Brady Bill for them for free and without any negotiation. And they threatened to arrest us if we failed to comply.
Mm-hmm.
Now, so we sued on the 10th Amendment. We sued on government overreach. We won on that very issue. And Scalia wrote the decision. And he said, the first quote that really hit me was from the New York case of 1992. And he quoted from it and he said, "We have held, however, that state legislatures are not subject to federal direction. Well, another thing your sheriff isn't subject to, he's not subject to the Illinois legislature. He's not subject to the governor. He's not subject to the attorney general. His boss are the people that elected him.
Right.
He was appointed to be sheriff by, for, and of the people. He swore an oath in God's name that he would uphold and defend, protect, and preserve their God-given rights as detailed in the United States Constitution, which would presuppose that you have to know what the Constitution says.
Right. Sheriff Mack, you're speaking my language. I tell you what. So the interesting thing here is that and I have my little pocket Constitution here. I carry it a lot of different places.
I've got mine right here. Yeah.
And the interesting thing here is so number one, you're defending two amendments in essence here with what you did when you sued the federal government, right? Because the Brady Bill was, from what I remember, the Brady Bill had to do with people being registered, right, in states, and it was the excuse
waiting periods, background checks,
right, background checks, and the excuse was the Reagan assassination attempt, so forth, with the
Correct.
person that got shot and paralyzed.
Correct. That's exactly correct.
Okay, and so what you did was, you sued the federal government based on the 10th Amendment. What's interesting there to me is, and can you explain because the 10th Amendment is a good checks and balances, and you mentioned an intellectual hero of mine in Antonin Scalia, and one of my favorite clips is him speaking before Congress and explaining to Congress that it's not the Bill of Rights that makes us free, although it's an important thing to list our rights. However, he says the mechanism for what makes us free that differs from Soviet Russia's constitution or any other constitution that also lists Bill of Rights is the checks and balances of the tripartite government. And I believe that what you're describing in the 10th Amendment is an even more, fine-tuned check and balance. So can you explain a little bit more about the 10th Amendment for us and why it's so important?
Sure. And I would expand that a little bit and saying, it's up to the people in office who swore an oath to defend the Constitution.
Absolutely.
And otherwise, it's just a piece of paper.
Right.
And so the founding fathers depended on all of us who swore the oath that we would actually keep our word. Mm-hmm. And in fact, according to the founders, you would die before you would violate your word and public oath of such magnitude. And so, yes, the sheriff is the key to all of this, but it's also up to the people. And the people have got to be involved with the sheriff. Mm-hmm. And so, what was the first part of your question?
So
again?
I was just going to ask you why because of what you sued the federal government for. If you could explain a little bit more.
About the 10th Amendment. Yeah, the 10th Amendment. So important. The 10th Amendment is the ultimate check and balance. You brought up the checks and balances. That's a very good point, because in the decision, it says that. Get this. Scalia quotes the Federalist Papers, and he's quoting Federalist 39. And I want to read this to you.
Absolutely.
As Madison expressed it, the local or municipal authorities, in other words, the cities and counties, form distinct and independent portions of the supremacy. So the federal government isn't solely supreme, according to the Article 6. It's up to us, the cities and counties. We share the supremacy, and our supremacy is independent of that of the federal government. No more subject within their respective spheres of authority than the general authority is subject to us within our own sphere of authority. And so that's what has to be defined. That's why your sheriff and all the sheriffs in this country have to know that what the founding fathers did was to limit the federal government within our Constitution. They have only discrete enumerated powers. And the Constitution, I quote again from this decision, the Constitution protects us from our own best intentions. And then Scalia added, it protects us from the crisis of the day. And this is those are just a few nuggets that you all need to have. And again, be able to refer to this decision and get it to all your public officials in your surrounding area. You'll love this decision. It will floor you that there was actually a decision this powerful. And this is the only time in history where sheriffs sued the federal government and won. And it is the most powerful 10th Amendment state sovereignty decision in the history of America.
Well, that should be a lesson to all sheriffs, right? That they
exactly.
Do. I mean, and so, well, tell me a little bit more about, because we have your website listed up there, cspoa.org, where where I think you could find the document that you've been showing.
You can buy this, purchase these, and these are only 3 for $5. So there's not much to them. And then the county sheriff, America's Last Hope. And these are the most powerful books you can get. And they're both very short, but everyone should be educated. And this is your business.
Right.
The American people have got to understand that the sheriff works for them and that they are the sheriff's boss and supervisor. So folks, yes, please get the books, get educated, get the other book, The County Sheriff, America's Last Hope, and know what your sheriff is supposed to know and what he's supposed to do. And then join us on cspoa.org. Join our posse, and we help train you to work with your sheriff. And at the same time, your dues help us stay funded and keep us moving and keep the entire movement of the constitutional sheriff moving forward.
So, Sheriff, what I'm hearing you saying is that, something that I think that people maybe aren't seeing as much of these days is that it's extremely important for sheriffs to know their Constitution, to know what the Constitution says and how to interpret it, because they are that last level of defense for the citizens to be able to enforce their rights and to protect them against the government when they're tyrannical. I mean, COVID was a perfect example, right? How many rights were violated during COVID? And we didn't see enough sheriffs, I think, step up.
Well, there were about 550 sheriffs nationwide that refused to do it, and they came out publicly and said so. We are not going to enforce it. We're not the mask police. These are all unconstitutional mandates, and none of them are even laws.
Right.
None of that was passed legislation. It was just mandate. What the hell is a mandate?
Yeah, right. I asked myself
an order from a dictator? What?
Yeah.
And so let me give you an example of what you were just saying. The CSPOA just helped President Trump cancel the nomination of Sheriff Chad Chronister in Florida, and we were appalled. We always use him as a bad example of what a sheriff does. We've done that for the last 4 or 5 years. And we've invited him to all of our training, all of our seminars, all of our conventions. He never returns our call, and we know why. He does not care about the Constitution, never has. And so he, during COVID, arrested Pastor Rodney Howard Brown, who owns a megachurch in the Tampa, Florida area, and then later, the next day, held a press conference and bragged about it, how he's protecting the people from getting COVID and we're saving lives and a bunch of other nonsense.
Sounds like more of a politician than a sheriff.
Your oath is to the Constitution, and you promised the people in your county that you would uphold and defend it.
Right.
Then, this is the tale of two sheriffs. Sheriff Glenn Hamilton, on the other hand, in New Mexico, was approached by Pastor Caleb Cooper. And Pastor Cooper told Sheriff Hamilton, we are not going to close our church down. And I'll tell you why. Because the government does not run our church. Jesus Christ runs our church. And I want to know what you will do to protect our church and congregation. And Sheriff Hamilton said, if it takes me having to go to jail myself, then so be it, because I will do everything in my power to protect you from closing down. So in came the state police to shut him down. They were met by Sheriff Hamilton. Sheriff Hamilton told all of them that he had already deputized every single member of that church, and that they were under his authority, and that they would not be closing down.
That's
the
awesome.
State police left, and Pastor Cooper never shut down 1 second of any day, and stayed open every Sunday during the COVID crisis, during the COVID farce.
That's great. That's a great story.
Now, the question we ask after that, we say, which sheriff do you want in your community? And to all the sheriffs in the nation, which sheriff are you? The one that stands for freedom and keeps your oath and protects the Constitution, the First Amendment right to freedom of religion? Or are you like Sheriff Chronister and violate the supreme law of the land and enforce a mandate that you have no business enforcing in the first place?
That's great. Those are great stories. And I think, it's easy to go along with the herd, right? But it takes courage to stand up for your rights and for freedom. And so, I think that's what Terry and I are trying to do. Now, on the first example you gave, I wanted to get your opinion on this. There was an article I pulled up on Sheriff Mendrick of DuPage County in our area. DuPage County Sheriff to suspend evictions during portion of the holiday season. Now, the headline is meant to sound, compassionate.
What is he, Santa Claus?
Well,
he's going to give everybody a Christmas present?
I wanted to get your opinion because the Fourth Amendment, I just want to read real quick part of it. The right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrants shall issue. Right. In your opinion, that enforcement that I read, that is a violation of the Fourth Amendment, no?
Well, he was stopping to evict people, or he was what exactly was he doing?
He is suspending evictions during a portion of the holiday season. This short-term suspension of evictions. And by what authority is
he doing that? Evictions are a lawful court order. That's a court order,
right?
And he's not in charge of those buildings, and the property owner is in charge of those buildings. And so if people aren't paying, the process is he tells them to leave, and if they don't leave, he gets a court order for the sheriff to evict them. And so while he's destroying the property rights of the owner of the apartment complex and making it to where he doesn't even own his own property because the sheriff wants to give everybody a Christmas present, I find that so irregular and nonsense. We will suspend doing our job during Christmas holidays. What?
I'll read you his
world
quote,
is
Sheriff.
he talking about?
Sheriff, I'll read you his.
Why? Wait. I got something here for you. I got something for Sheriff Mendrick. Why don't you suspend writing tickets instead?
I think that's a great idea. Here's what Sheriff Mendrick. I'll tell you what, Sheriff. Here's from Sheriff Mendrick's own mouth. Quote from the article: "This short-term suspension of evictions will allow families to be assured they will be able to stay in their homes and with their families during the holiday season, but in somebody else's property," right?
Yeah, right.
So
at the expense of someone else. If it's his property, he can do that.
Yeah.
But I've never heard of such a thing.
Sheriff, listen, I'm so glad I had an opportunity to talk with you, because I think, we're running into a lot of this kind of, this kind of thing in Illinois. Illinois is obviously a blue state. Terry and I have been fighting against the Democrats and the Republicans, because in Illinois, the Democrats have, complete control. We've lost the last two gubernatorial races in both legislatures, we have less than half representation of Republicans. What that's come to mean is that they've basically been captured by the Democrat Party. It's more of a pay-to-play
Right.
political situation, right, for the Republicans, in that, they'll go along with what the Democrats say as long as they get their position on a county board or, in the state legislature in order to get their pension. And so we see a lot less, advocacy for the traditional constitutional values in Illinois. And I guess to that measure, what would your message be to sheriffs in Illinois who feel the political pressure? What kind of empowerment can you give them?
Well, there were about 90 sheriffs in Illinois that told Governor Pritzker that he could pound sand on his assault rifle ban. First of all, he has no authority to do that. He cannot violate the Second Amendment. He cannot violate the law in order to supposedly make everybody safer. And the only people that give up those guns are the ones that have never committed a crime and never intend to commit a crime. So it just doesn't make any sense. But the supreme law of the land is that the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. And he swore an oath to uphold and defend that. He has committed perjury. He has committed treason. When you take someone's property for them, there has to be due process. So it violates the Fifth Amendment, violates the Sixth Amendment, and violates obviously the Second Amendment. So Pritzker is being so unlawful, and he's committing a crime while he's supposedly trying to make everybody safer. 90 sheriffs in Illinois stood against him, and that means some from his own party. And so we were really proud of what they did. Sheriff Root was the first one to take that stand, and many of the sheriffs followed him. And I think the Sheriff's Association also came out against it. I know they did in several other states. And so it's sheriffs standing and doing what's right per their oath of office to uphold and defend, protect and preserve the United States Constitution, and thus protect the civil rights of the American citizens within his jurisdiction. Nothing could be more noble or honorable than that. Liberty comes first in America.
Damn right.
Not vapid politicians.
Sheriff, I know you got to get running. I wanted to read something from the SPLC hit piece on the constitutional sheriffs and just get your reaction, because Terry's actually been hit by SPLC as well. But to me, this is just a fundamental mischaracterization of what America is all about. This is what they said about the constitutional sheriffs. The origins of the constitutional sheriff ideology lie in the two concepts of the country's supremacy movement. The county, not the state or the federal governments, should control all land within its borders, and the county sheriff should be the ultimate law enforcement authority in the U.S. These ideas were pioneered by Christian identity minister William Potter Gale in the 1970s and described as posse comitatus. So they're calling your idea about the sheriff's right to enforce the law an ideology lie. What would your response to that be?
Well, the Southern Poverty Law Center hates America, hates our Constitution, hates the Second Amendment, hates the Founding Fathers. So naturally, they hate anybody who supports all of that. But maybe he should read my Supreme Court case. Right. And so right here on top of page 4, yeah. Can you see that word right below my finger?
Cleos.
You see the word?
Cleos.
Cleos. The Supreme Court declared that the sheriffs are the Cleos. The Brady Bill itself that we sued on also called us the Cleos, the chief law enforcement officer. Yeah. So Southern Poverty Law Center, why don't you take your lies somewhere else? Right. And we've invited them numerous times to honest, open debate, a honest public debate, maybe at the Press Club in Washington, D.C. or on C-SPAN. None of those groups will ever meet us face to face because they hide behind their typewriters and their computers and their pens, and they love to lie because they know that propaganda works ultimately.
Right.
And they're really good at that. And what I can't believe is that how well funded they are. Folks, we are not racist. We support the liberty for Jew, Gentile, black, white, brown, yellow. Freedom is for all people. Civil rights are for all people of all races, creeds, and color. And we don't want to get in the way of anyone who will defend freedom. Ours is a peaceful process. It's an effective process. And we ask every one of your listeners right now to join us at the CSPOA. Do not let the SPLC and ADL and these other groups and these leftist, extremist, communists win the battle in the media or any place else. We have a huge opportunity now with Trump to take our country back, and we, the people, must be involved. We, the sheriffs, must be involved. And the people working together with their sheriffs is the answer, is the solution, and America will once again be the God-given constitutional republic it was meant to be.
Amen. Hear, hear. Thank you so much, Sheriff Mack, for educating us. I want to make it clear that this bringing you on to talk about our sheriff was not a political ploy. I think you explained it perfectly that what he's done is unconstitutional. And to your last point there, that people need to understand that their sheriff is their first line of defense for the Constitution and enforcing
First
those
and
civil
last.
rights. Right. Yeah. So everybody, please go to cspoa.org and educate yourself. And then if you have a sheriff who isn't, standing up for your rights, use this as your sword and shield, the cspoa.org. Please go to it. Please check out those 2 books that the sheriff was holding up there. And Sheriff Mack, I really want to thank you for your service.
Thank you too.
And for educating us. It's been a pleasure to talk to you.
I appreciate your service too, Paul, and call me anytime. I look forward to seeing and talk to you again.
Excellent. Take care of yourself. Well, that was awesome. I think it was awesome for a lot of reasons, right? We were able to expose that our own sheriff is not upholding the constitutional values that the citizens deserve, and he is not defending our rights. And it just so happens that Terry and I have a political beef with him. But I'll tell you what, my political beef with him is that he doesn't stand for the Constitution, and that's both political and ideological on my part. I believe my ideology is freedom. So my thing about this whole thing between Terry and Sheriff Mendrick is that Sheriff Mendrick has done all the wrong things in this situation. He is violating our constitutional rights by upholding this law, and he's doing it again by saying that he's going to pause evictions. He has no right to do that. That is a violation of our constitutional rights. This is the kind of sheriff that's dangerous. The kind of sheriff that doesn't understand the Constitution is not somebody who should be anywhere near a seat of authority. It's irresponsible. It's uneducated and ignorant for him to uphold these laws, these unconstitutional laws. And furthermore, I don't particularly have anything against Bob Berlin, who is the state's attorney in DuPage County, but shame on you. Shame on you. You agreed in that article. That was a joint statement. I want to read this again. Quote, enforcement of this law does not demand that deputies go door to door seeking to remove weapons from those licensed to own them. With this understanding, Sheriff Mendrick is committed to enforcing all state and local laws. Berlin, Conroy, and Mendrick said in a joint statement posted to Facebook on Tuesday. Well, Bob Berlin, I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a state attorney, but I know my rights, and that law is a violation of our Second Amendment. So shame on you for going along with it. The people that go along to get along are the people that help us lose our freedoms. So You know, I just ask in that situation, they're not going to go door to door. Okay, well, what about somebody who gets accused of a crime? The court gets a warrant to search their property. The police who go to that property to search property find weapons that are now illegal under this law. Then that person gets prosecuted for that law. But maybe they are innocent of the accusation that led to the warrant to the search. What happens in that loophole? I would doubt that they would be given a pass on this new being prosecuted for this new law, right? But it would turn out that if they were innocent on the other charge, that the police shouldn't have even been there in the first place. This is just spitballing here, right? I'm guessing there are situations where people can be prosecuted for this law, even if deputies aren't going door to door. There's probably other scenarios too. This is just off the top of my head. Shame on you. This is an unconstitutional law. Our Second Amendment is violated by this law. Period. It's very simple, right? So that's that. The other stuff I want to cover, Jason, if you want to bring up the Gateway Pundit article. Big week this week, folks. Big week. Terry. So Terry and I have been at this thing for, just a little bit over a year. We decided to start a podcast. And for anybody who thinks that the grassroots movement is useless, I'll just show them this article. So in just a little over a year, in less than a year, really, because we started meeting with these people before a year was even up, Terry and I have gotten national media attention. I now write and am employed with the Gateway Pundit as a journalist. Terry's now brokering closed-door meetings with top Chicago Democrats and Tom Homan, the incoming border czar of this country, right? I mean, in this article, I show that Terry is in the airport filming Tom Homan as he walks down this causeway where there used to be illegal immigrants camped everywhere, right? And they removed them because it just became too much of a media magnet. And he walks down this causeway talking to some lady and then gets to a security officer who admits there's still illegal immigrants being flown into Chicago. And this was directly after a meeting Terry brokered with, again, the border czar of this country and top Democrats, including Chicago Alderman Raymond Lopez. And in the article, there's a clip from Emerald Robinson's show, The Absolute Truth, where Terry and Alderman Raymond Lopez are speaking about the immigration crisis in Chicago. And Alderman Lopez is very candid about this situation, right? And he admits that, the mayor and the governor are wrong in this situation and that people in Chicago are being hurt by the illegal immigration situation, that Chicago has spent over $600 million. And Terry and I have uncovered through FOIA requests. So anybody who wants us to call us right wing or biased or whatever, let me just clear the air here on this. A majority of my writing is sourced by government responses to FOIA requests that Terry has done. So, you could come after us for the work that we're doing and suggest that it's biased, but I'm writing about the responses that we're getting from the government. I don't think that you could get a better source than that. We're going right to the source. And we're showing that Catholic Charities, FEMA, the White House, in one of my latest articles, are colluding with the city of Chicago and the state of Illinois to extort taxpayer money and pay for non-citizens to live in fully furnished apartments and put them all over the state of Illinois. So this is the issue, right? We just talked to a constitutional sheriff, and we have a situation in Illinois where Democrats are doing illegal things, and they think they have cover because of politics, right? Because they've created an ideological bubble around their supporters that the other people are bad guys. Well, I'll tell you what. It's pretty neutral from Terry and my perspective, because the Democrats hate us, and so do the Republicans, because we criticize them as well. I mean, I would say that I lean more conservative, of course, because I mean, the Democrats are basically communists at this point. Look, it's not that I'm like team red, hate team blue. It's just I pay attention to the policy and the legislation that's passed by the Democrats. They're violating our First Amendment rights with the book ban bill, which licenses the state to propagandize through the libraries, and then violates the citizens' First Amendment right to petition their government for redress of grievances. They're introducing bills that would try to penalize the parent for opposing transgender ideology being in their kids' school. They're violating our Second Amendment right. They passed the Safety Act in the middle of the night in February of 2021, which introduced cashless bail, right? So the problem with the Safety Act is that now law enforcement has no deterrent to keep violent criminals off the street, or very little deterrent to keep violent criminals off the street. Then when you decide that you're going to bring in countless illegal immigrants with no conception for what their background is, you will see what Terry and I uncovered in FOIA requests, that there is rampant crime in these illegal immigration facilities where they're being held, and Chicago law enforcement has to just release them because of the Safety Act. And so they recongregate with other criminals. They mix into communities. And in the story that I wrote, Terry spoke about the meeting where Tom Homan, the new border czar, has explained that, we just want the cooperation of the city of Chicago and the state of Illinois, Governor Pritzker and Mayor Johnson, because there are violent criminals being arrested, and we would like to be able to send our agents to the jails to get those criminals and be able to remove them and deport them. But when you just send them back into the community, you're endangering the federal agents, you're endangering the local law enforcement, the illegal immigrants themselves, and most importantly, the citizens in those communities, because they are going to get deported. And you saw Tom Homan say that if Mayor Johnson stands in the way, he will be prosecuted for interfering with federal law. So again, this is our Constitution that Terry and I are supporting, and it's only the ideology of opposing another side that is at play here. And we got to get past this kind of stuff, because people's rights are being violated and trampled on. And luckily, we have a president coming in that is for law and order. And I think we could sure use some of that in Illinois. That's for sure. Because as we've shown and demonstrated in this show, our own Sheriff Mendrick of DuPage County, has no respect for the Constitution, will be willing to violate citizens' Second Amendment rights their Fourth Amendment rights because it's Christmas time. You have no right. You have no authority to violate the Constitution on behalf of the county government. Who the hell do you think you are, Jim Mendrick? And that's not me, the political adversary, talking to you. That's me, the American citizen, saying you don't get to violate my rights because you think you are an authority. All right. Let's get past that part. So a lot of exciting things that are happening on the podcast and the media front with me and Terry. More to come in January. In fact, we are going to be interviewing the People's General, the former national security advisor of our country, General Michael Flynn. That's January 14th. So we obviously look forward to that. I can't wait to ask him all kinds of questions. Look forward to hearing his perspective on the new Trump administration, all kinds of other stuff. Okay, so we'll close out with some local news. So as many of you saw last week, I am running for village council in Downers Grove. And the issue that I spoke about last week that we played was that the village council and library board, are considering allowing the citizens to answer a question. That's it. Non-binding, they call it. Answer a question about whether or not those citizens should be allowed to elect the board of the library that they fund. Imagine that. Imagine that. And what we found out last night was there was a library board meeting last night. What we found out last night was, of course, the library board is against that. They would rather be appointed by the local government because they're in charge of $7 million budget, and they're not accountable to the citizens for that budget right now. So what they will do is they will hire a consultant for $157,000 to tell them that that Downers Grove is inherently racist. Or they'll try to have drag queen bingo, or they'll say that Christian churches, committed genocide on Native Americans, and basically they hate America is what it sounds like. So they're doing all kinds of stuff like that, and the village council deigned to have the nerve to suggest that we should put a question in front of the people to say, should the library board be elected? Well, you're damn right it should be elected. It's our tax dollars. It's plain and simple. And I had to listen to village council members go on long-winded diatribes about nuance and complexity of analysis. It's really simple. It's our right to elect the board because you're spending our money. I mean, last night at this library board, apparently the director, they said, what do we do about this? Oh my gosh, they're trying to take our authority and we have to fight against it. And the library board director said, well, we've got to spend $25,000 to fight this. Wait a minute. Let me get this straight. So you're saying that not only should we not have a say in how our money is spent, you're going to spend $25,000 of our own money to shut us up, to lock us out from deciding how our money is spent. Insane. Incredible. These people are incredible. All right. So last week I spoke about this issue, right? And essentially I said that in a much more measured tone because it was at a public meeting in the village council. And there is this, and we played it last week. There's a village council member who is none too happy that I am running for village council. And I would say opposes it, and played a clip from the podcast. And in that clip from the podcast, I called one of the transgender pastor of the Methodist church in town. It's Pat. And honestly, I thought it was pretty funny. I really don't know what the gender is. I mean, it's better than Jason. It's better than what do they call it when I don't say the pronoun, right? Misgendering, is that right? Is that what it's called? Misgendering?
Uh, Possibly, but I think it's just not indulging their fantasies.
Well, thank you. Because why would I? I mean, it's ridiculous. But furthermore, like, I mean, and I'll just be honest, and I don't think that it's crazy to say, yeah, I am against the library hiring a social worker that indoctrinated children with a transgender Santa Claus. And we've played that event on this podcast because Terry was part of an HBO special where he opposed that and was there for it. I'm against that. I don't think it's right. And I'm not going to hide behind that opinion. I'm going to say it outright. And, if you're going to come after me for saying that, that's fine. But I have a First Amendment right. And, I fought in a war. Well, you know what? On that note, I had a response this week at the village council meeting. And I think we have that video for you. So, Jason, you want to play the video of my response to this village council woman? And it's coming. Here we go. Hello, my name is Paul Drabick. I'd like to address last week's meeting where a clip of my podcast was played, and shortly thereafter, a profanity-laced tirade from a voicemail was played. I believe the implication was that there was some sort of connection between the two. I want to state here that there's absolutely no connection whatsoever, and I think the implication was dishonest. Furthermore, I think it's unprofessional and inappropriate for a village commissioner to use this platform as a bully pulpit to air their personal and political grievances. I do have a podcast, and you could dismiss it as hateful bigotry if you want, but I have interviewed FBI and CIA whistleblowers, Gold Star families, the inventor of mRNA technology, Dr. Robert Malone, the incoming border chief of this country, Tom Homan, and in January, I'll be interviewing the former national security advisor of this country, General Michael Flynn. That has led me to an opportunity as a journalist with a national news publication, and this publication gets millions of views every day, has international reach. I have a working relationship with the editor who's interviewed the President of the United States. So you can question my bona fides, but I stand behind my record. I fought in war for this country, and I served alongside people of every race, religion, gender, and sexual preference. And we risked our lives for one another to protect the people of Ramadi, Iraq from terrorism and to help them rebuild their community from the ravages of despotism. I served all Americans, not just those I'm politically aligned with. So I would put my record of advocacy for diversity up against any member of this village council. Now, I am also continuing my record of service, and you all appointed me to the Human Services Commission of this village. Now, apparently, some of you are second-guessing that appointment because you disagree with my politics. I don't think that's fair or right. I work well with my colleagues and the village manager, and I am proud of the work that we have done. I came here last week to speak about the library referendum. The village council and the library board are debating whether they should allow the citizens to answer a question about whether they should be allowed to vote for the board of the library they fund. But see, it isn't a question of should. The citizens have the right to elect the board of the library because they pay for it. The question is whether you are going to continue to restrict that right. We have a responsibility to uphold the foundational principles of this nation, to preserve a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. Of course, the citizens should be allowed to answer the question and to elect the board. You're spending their money. And they have a right to have a say in how that $7 million is spent. Because you know what? You sit in their chamber. You work for them. And so does the library. It's common sense. I am running for village council because people feel that there is a lack of common sense governing and that their voices haven't been heard. I speak for those people. It is my First Amendment right, and I believe I've earned that. Now, I'd love to stick around, but I have a 4 and a 2-year-old at home, and it's the witching hour, so I thank you for your time, and God bless America. So, yeah, that didn't go very well for her. She didn't have much to say after that, let's say. Now, I'm sure she's going to continue to attack me, but, go ahead. You want to compare resumes there, village commissioner? I mean, I hate to be this guy, but who the hell are you? I served my country in combat. You bloviate about your feigned victimhood and LGBTQ rights. Good for you. I'll compare my record to yours anytime. But my more focused message there was about the rights of the people. We're in a situation in this country where the establishment, elitist political class has disregarded the Constitution as an irrelevant document. And I stand in firm opposition to that idea. I'm all about freedom. I put my life on the line for it. Terry's put his life on the line for it, his reputation, his family. We both have, and we both are. And I think that conversation with Sheriff Mack today was illuminating because it shows that there are law enforcement officers out there, and there are people, citizens of this country out there, i.e. Terry and myself, who, if you have the courage to stand on principle and speak for freedom, you will be lifted up. But you have to stand in the breach and be willing to take the slings and arrows. And I'll be damned if I'm not willing to do that. So the people who want to restrict our rights, who think that they can just do whatever they want because they sit on a village council board or a county board or have sheriff on their name tag, they think they can keep doing what they're doing without having the light of transparency shown on them. They've got another thing coming. All right. So I think that's all we got. Jason, do we have any commercials? I think maybe DuPage Freedom Federation. No? Okay. Well, we've got a lot more. Oh, there you go. Oh, shoot. I forgot about the My Pillow. We got to remember to do this. My Pillow. It's the holiday season, everybody. 80% off. Bell 1776. Bell 1776. Again, I say this all the time. I have 2 My Pillows that are like 10 years old. I swear to God. Before I even knew who this guy was, I bought a couple My Pillows when they were at Bed Bath & Beyond before they got rid of them because he dared to support President Trump. And they're awesome. They still hold form. I don't know what he put in these things.
Remember,
it's like
they
magic.
taste great in case you had to bite them.
I want to make a comment, but I'm not Terry, so I don't. I'm getting into the realm of politics now. I got to be careful about what she's just going to clip everything I say nowadays.
That's why I can say the colorful things.
Right. So But you know what? I have one more thing to say on that topic. Look, on the Terry thing, if I gotta say, I support everything. I support Terry's right to say whatever he wants to say with my life because I believe in free speech. I think it's a paramount human value. It's certainly the paramount constitutional value because it allows us to have a free marketplace of ideas and hold the government accountable. It doesn't mean I agree with everything he says or that I support everything he says, but that's the beauty of free speech. You have to be willing to live in a country where you have to hear things that you don't like. Otherwise, there's no point in free speech. Free speech is not just for the speech that you like. So, people can go after us because Terry said this or that. I mean, in the clip she played, Terry sweared about this guy, and she freaked out about it, and whatever. And I try to keep it a little more clean than Terry. I think we play off each other nice, but I support with my life the right for Terry to say whatever it is he wants to say, because that's what our country is all about. The ability to do that. And if we didn't have that, we wouldn't have a free country. And furthermore, just another thing, I might as well clear the air here for anybody who thinks that, my political ambition is one in which that I would ever denounce my relationship with Terry Newsom. Terry Newsom is the reason that I have the ability to write for a nationally syndicated news outlet. He has allowed me to meet and talk to national figures. He is my partner in crime, and I will never denounce that relationship. I support him fully. He supports me, and we fight for you. So we're going to continue to do that. On that note, thank you everybody for watching. Thank you for your support, and we'll see you next Thursday.